Greetings, beautiful people. My name is Simon Javan Okelo. I am at the Seattle Drum School in Georgetown in Seattle, Washington. And I am really excited to be here with you for another episode here in the Madaraka Festival podcast. This is the rebirth of the Afia podcast that was going on for about 3 years. And now we are recording live inside the lab. This is a really beautiful space in Seattle where so many events have been held, so many incredible bands practice here, including the One Vibe band that is the house band for Madaraka Festival. With me here today is Kyle. Kyle Huber is the COO and the co-founder of Earthy, which is an incredible organization, a startup company that is producing supplements, that is good for you, and it's a grassroots product that is just, in the process of evolving. And I want you to just add a little bit to the introduction. What is it about yourself that you want our viewers and listeners to learn about you that I haven't added? I know you love outdoors. I know you are a native Seattleite. There are very few native Seattleites that still live in Seattle today,
Very few, yes.
Yeah, add a little bit to the introduction.
Absolutely. Thank you, Simon, by the way, for having me and creating this space. Yes, everything you said about Earthy. I think what I would add is, our whole mission is around transparency, and a lot of people, they have this sense that there's something wrong with the supplement industry and more broadly the food industry, especially in the United States. A lot of food is processed. A lot of supplements are mixed with unnatural, artificial things that disrupt our guts or create health issues that we're not even aware of. So we buy supplements trying to improve our health, but the supplement industry, there's no regulation, there's no oversight. So it's really up to individuals to make the decisions over what they want to put in their bodies. And right now it's very hard to make those decisions because there's no transparency. You don't know what's actually in the product that you're buying. So I think just to set the stage for today, like knowing that our entire premise of our business is built on this idea that, or this thesis of like, can we make a transparent supplement that still tastes good and still works effectively, and be able to share exactly how much of each ingredient is in the product and where it comes from down to the farm level. So I can get into like how we built Earthy with those core values. But that's, I think, a good place to start and just add a little intro. But Earthy's mission is to empower people to take ownership of their health.
I love that. So for those who are joining us for the first time for the Madaraka Festival podcast, thank you. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. And today we will cover a little bit of Kyle's story. We will talk about Earthy, the company that he started. And we'll also tie into the value of event production. A lot of you have been asking me, hey, Simon, how have you been producing Madaraka Festival for the last decade? So we will align that conversation with how Kyle and his community have built this incredible organization that you'll be seeing also in the Madaraka promo and marketing, because we are looking forward to partnering with them. So let's take a few steps back. You grew up in Seattle, and as an African immigrant, moving here, at first I didn't even know what to expect, and this is an unfiltered podcast. It's because of my wife that I moved here. My wife grew up on Massa Island, which is a very privileged part of the world,
Yeah.
We met in Ghana.
Wow.
Yeah, we built the first HIV clinic in Ghana. So my wife and her community, provided the money to build that clinic in Ghana, and also they provided the healthcare aspect of expertise. They brought nurses from the US, and they shipped medical equipment to Ghana. My job at that time was to design the clinic and build it, and I was building multiple projects like that across Africa. So when I first saw my wife's picture, I was like, wow, is she an indigenous Indian? Is she a native Indian from America? Because as an African, I was always fascinated by native Indians, you know, like the Indian tribes. And in my wife's Facebook profile picture, she had like an ohana, you know, she was celebrating Halloween.
Okay.
And so she was, you know, she decorated her face like an ohana. You know ohana?
Ohana is a Hawaiian?
I think ohana is Hawaiian or Native American or something like that. So
it means family and community. What does it mean?
I don't know what it means.
Okay.
But she had her facial painting was the depiction of ohana. I came to learn that later. But I was just like, I need to. She's attractive, not just because of how she looks, but also because of her being a Native American. So later on, I came to learn that she was actually just a white American who was celebrating Halloween. You know, she came to tell me that.
That's hilarious. That's hilarious.
She came to tell me that, you know, I'm actually not, you know, a Native American. I'm actually, originally, my roots are in Italy and Ireland. But the picture you saw, that's Halloween, you know.
That's too funny. Well, that's why we dress up on Halloween, right? It's adults that we're looking for an excuse to be kids again. I love that. And that's a very cool story.
Yeah, I mean, so how was it being brought up in this region? And, you know, if you are to walk into, you know, a community of African people in Federal Way here in Seattle, or if you are fortunate enough to go with me to Kenya and somebody asked you this question, how would you tell them it felt to grow up in this part of the world?
I love the question. Thank you for asking it. How did it feel to grow up in this area? I was also born in Mercer Island, and which is it's a small island, 6 miles long by 1 mile wide. There's about 20,000 people there, and it's a very affluent community, so it's safe, but with that come some trade-offs. And so for me, I played team sports all growing up, and while my dad had he would always take us out on the weekends to the mountains, or we would go to church on Sunday and then go play at the park. A lot of my childhood memories are hikes, camping, stuff like that, but I never really had a deep passion for it myself. It was just what we did. It was just part of our family. And I think when I actually moved to Indiana for college, which is the Midwest. If you've ever been out there, there's not much going on in terms of nature. And that was the period of time when I really developed a deep, deep passion for the outdoors. I would come home from college for a week and immediately get in my car and go on a camping trip, or go by myself out to the Washington coast, beautiful peninsula, and just backpack or hike or mountain bike. And that's when I sort of started to realize that my passion for the outdoors, I needed to find a place where I could explore professionally that same passion, which drew me to documentary filmmaking and outdoor adventure filmmaking, and storytelling. And that led me back into startups, basically. So I was working on my own films and freelancing, and now I'm not really answering your question exactly, because you asked what does it feel like to grow up here, but
you're kind of doing it, and I can't help but compare spending a lot of time outdoors here versus spending a lot of time outdoors in Kenya. I grew up, in fact, I had no option but to spend a lot of time outdoors, you know. But one of the things now that I'm raising kids here, you know, I'm a father of 3 girls. One of the things I miss about growing up in Kenya is that I could just leave the house on a Friday after school and go and live with friends, play at different soccer tournaments. I won't pay for any of the soccer tournaments, you know. We would just show up with my team and say, can we play? And then they would say, yeah, play against us. And by the time we look at our clock watches, it's end of the day, so we go and crash at a friend's place. Their parents don't even know where I come from, but they cook for us, they give us space to sleep. But along the way, you know, you find a mango tree and you just grab mangoes and eat it. You know, you find a guava tree, you just grab such things and enjoy it. But here, I can't even find, I don't know if it's just me, but I can't find fruits in the wild that I can actually consume. So I don't know if the environment has been compromised by just how, you know, colonization does to a place, you know. So that's just a comment that I wanted to make.
The way you describe your childhood, I almost feel some nostalgia thinking about my own. We wouldn't necessarily, it wasn't the same experience, but we on Mercer Island, everyone had a bike. All my friends would ride from one person's house to the other, up the hill, down the hill. And we would be on our own. Like, our parents didn't know where we were.
Right.
We were 12 years old or 13 years old. And that sense of freedom for me, like being able to move around and have this autonomy as a young person was really powerful for me.
How long ago was this?
I'm 29, so 15 plus years.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think.
Man, I sorry to jump in,
no,
but
please.
Because I'm raising my kids there, you know, and I'm telling you, my oldest is 9, and my second born is 5, and I still have to take them to school a lot of the time, you know, and by the time I was 8, I was a salesman. You know, my daughter is 9 now, but she can't be a salesperson.
You're not going to send her out knocking on doors by herself.
No. I was riding a bike and distributing milk and bread and making money by the time I was 8. You know, and I just worry that kids here are not being exposed to real world experiences. And I honestly feel that American educational system is great, but it's to make the industrial complex perpetual, you know, to prepare everybody to go and work for Google and Walmart and Amazon, but not to prepare people for real life challenges. Like during the pandemic or even during a snowstorm is when you really know that you can't find everything in the books or on Google, you know?
I would agree. I would almost take it one step further, which is the school system is set up so that you could be a good factory worker, not even a good corporate or like a Google, Amazon. I would argue that in order to get a good job, you need to think critically, and school doesn't teach you to think critically. School teaches you to sit in a desk, regurgitate the exact information that you were given, you write it down, you memorize it, you take the test, and you move on. And so, I don't think the United States has the federal education system I have a lot of problems with. And I used to always say, I've never let my schooling interfere with my education, because education goes much further than just books, right? How do you replace a light bulb in your house? How do you, what was something I was working on? I was up on my roof the other day getting the moss off the roof. Like, we have things here in Washington. The biggest enemy we have is water. Water will destroy everything. So those life skills and even financial literacy, understanding taxes, understanding how to save money, they don't teach us any of that. And so I've been on a journey of education. Really, I would say I've learned more through podcasting and through my own self-directed learning than I ever did in school. So to kind of tie it back to how do you raise kids, I talk about this with my partner a lot. We don't have kids, but one day would like to. And there's a fine balance, because you have to empower them to go make mistakes, get hurt their knee, have a friend, you know, have maybe a awkward social interaction. That's how we learn. Right. And so if you nerf or if you put padding around all the experiences that a kid can have, they're never going to have that hard lesson. And I have been really actually fortunate to have some bigger challenges in my life, coming from a very secure and safe background, but having some big mistakes that I've made and big setbacks and failures. Like, those are the things that have actually taught me more and propelled me forward. And I'm just a big fan of using challenge as an opportunity versus everyone's going to face challenge, and it's more how you react to it. So it sounds a little cliche, but you tell me how you raise your kids, because I'm trying to learn from you. And I also want to learn during this show just about I want to hear more about how you guys have built Madaraka Festival as well, because it ties really nicely in with what we're doing with Earthy. So,
yeah, man. So a couple of things.
Yeah.
Failure, how to avoid failure, and how to capitalize on failure to be successful. You know, for me, I actually believe that, especially for those who are watching, if you want to avoid failure in terms of event production, in terms of growing something like Madaraka Festival so that it gets to the level where Madaraka Festival has got to, if you want to avoid failure, then you have to look for someone who has failed a lot and has eventually succeeded, to mentor you for free if they really want to support you, or you pay them to help you avoid the failures that they avoided. You know, that's one thing I'll speak to, but I want us to go a little further, because you know, you spoke about your, you know, how you learned from your biggest failures, and I feel like I have also learned from my biggest failures. Producing Madaraka Festival is like a chain of failures that that are also laced with successes. You know, I say a chain of failures laced with a lot of successes is that what the audience see is the success that laces the failures, you know?
Yep.
And it continues growing to a point where the audience members themselves become investors in Madaraka Festival. And I imagine that even for you and Earthy, it's people who have seen you struggle that behind the scene, they say, okay, I'll put this amount of time. I can't put money, but I'll have a 30-minute meeting with you, you know. So I would say that if you're not willing to fail many times, then you're not going to be successful at any time, you know. But I want you to speak about your biggest failures, you know, because when you think about failing, it's very scary. And I think Americans have actually been educated to be so afraid of failing, you know, in my opinion. And I think that's one of the challenges I have with my daughters, you know. My daughters are so afraid of failing. And I feel like because they interact with so many American kids and the environment they're being raised in is where you yell so loudly when you're failing. Even if they lose in a Nintendo game, you hear it from far, you know.
Yeah. Oh, I used to play Xbox. I know how that goes.
Yeah. So for me, if I fail, I laugh because I realize there's a light bulb moment where I know that, okay, this is how far I have failed, you know. But this is how I'll never repeat it again, you know. And then at the same time, I realized that this is how much more I need to fail to learn the next lesson, you know. And so for Madaraka Festival, the first time I produced an event ever was in my mother's backyard, you know.
Love it.
I was still in high school. And, you know, my goal was to do a Christmas Eve event. And so I borrowed a neighbor's stereo. I borrowed another neighbor a microphone. And I borrowed like people's couches and chairs, and before we knew it, there was loud music. People were jumping over the fence to come in because it was parked, you know. And you know, part of the neighbor's stereo was damaged by the end of the event, and I didn't realize that, you know, like the neighbor who owned the microphone would want the microphone the way it was, you know. Like there are things that happened that I still draw inspiration with the current work I do with Madaraka Festival, you know. Being able to return the microphone even if it's not in good shape, being able to return the stereo even if it's one of the speakers is dented, and just being able to explain that, look, I brought this, it's damaged, but I really learned how to do these events, and next time I'll do a bigger event and I'll invite you for free, you know. So I built alliances with people that I failed, you know. With Madaraka Festival, I've organized it so many times. Sometimes I don't have enough capital to even pay artists. But because artists, a lot of them believe in me, they want to do it even for free. And even if I can't pay them, they say, okay, by when can you pay it? You know, so we come up with a payment plan, you know. And the community, you know, there are so many people who promote Madaraka Festival even without me paying them anything.
Right.
And sometimes I feel like, oh, you know, I need to pay you something, you know. And then they say, no, I just want you to succeed, you know. There are people who have introduced me to millionaires who are not giving me their millions, but they're giving me their time and helping me scale Madaraka Festival. So I want you to speak about your own failures, you know. And like the worst one, and also just speak about how, you know, after your failures, I want us to go into Earthy, you know, how you built Earthy and some of the biggest failures you've experienced recently with it. I want us to focus on failures a little more because there's no single brand even the Christian faith, even Jesus himself was a big failure in many ways.
Sure.
You know, Bob Marley failed in so many ways. You know, Bill Gates. You know, so failure is something that many people are afraid to speak about. But I think we need to just rest there for a second.
Thank you for creating the space for this. And we could spend the rest of the podcast talking about my failures. I think the failure that I want to focus on is something I think a lot of people deal with, which is feeling like you wasted time. I was working for a company. I was actually a podcast producer and editor, and our company was acquired by a publicly traded company called Fiverr. They told us, hey, we're going to give you more resources. You're going to build. The company was called Creative Live. We're going to basically give you guys capital to build the business the way you've been doing it. So for 10 months, we had this vision of like, we're building a really long-term plan for the future. And one day on a Tuesday, it was July 27th, 2021, we got an email saying, hey, all hands meeting, everybody jump on this Zoom call. And everybody was fired just like that. Boom. Company gone. The company that acquired us was just going to basically rehire everybody from our company in Israel, which is where their headquarters was. And so I was kind of, that was not the failure. It's hard. Failure's it's a relative word because failure is temporary. If you give up, that's a failure. If someone, stops you from doing what you want and you say, okay, I'm going to give up, that's when you fail. So actually it's not a failure what I went through, but I left that company and I joined a small startup in the supplement industry, which I've always wanted to get into entrepreneurship. I had this sense that I want to be a business owner and I want to run my own business. And this was an opportunity to bring the skills from the podcasting and production into a startup and help them make content for social media, market their product. And after about 6 months, it became very clear that the founding team, we were not aligned on our values as why we were doing this business, what the intention is, which if you're making supplements, the intention needs to be, we want to improve people's health to some degree. And at that company, that was not a priority. The product itself was mislabeled. So on the packaging, it would tell you there's no sweetener, there's nothing in here that would taste sweet, but customers would email us and say, why does the product taste so sweet? And when we figured out that there was a hidden artificial sweetener listed under natural flavors, myself and my now business partner, Brooks, said, this doesn't sit well with us. And, we want to start our own thing. We recognize that there's this bigger problem, which is a lack of transparency and honesty and accountability in the supplement industry. And so the failure was spending 6 months working for free every single day, working so hard on somebody else's business, didn't get paid $1, didn't get any equity, and had to basically bite the bullet and be like, yes, there's opportunity here. If we stay here and we keep working, we can make money. They had a big national distribution deal. We were close to paying getting a couple grand a month and just like a salary, I guess. But we just in that moment, it feels like failure because you're at zero. You have nothing. You have no idea. But we had this idea that, okay, we saw how this company ran their business, and we know we can do it better. So whether it was naive or it was just ambitious or what, we started Earthy last January, and it took us 6 or 7 months to get a product live on the market. But yeah, the journey for me has been keeping focused on the future, even when you don't see progress. So you work, you don't go anywhere, you feel like you're stuck, but you are making progress, right?
Right.
So I think I could talk about other failures, but yeah, that was a big one for me, was taking 6 to 9 months and working on something else. But the blessing in disguise was that now this idea, this business, the skills that I developed at that business now apply in this new chapter of my life. So I'm actually grateful for, as painful and ugly and hostile as that it was almost like a breakup, like a bad breakup. It was not a positive breakup, but it was necessary. And I think one of the biggest lessons is, if you're going to do business with someone, you need to be aligned on everything. You need to communicate transparently, have open conversations. If you're frustrated about something, you got to talk about it, because especially us men, we bottle things up, we keep it inside, and then one day something triggers that and we just lose it.
We explode.
You know? So
We explode. So you spoke beautifully about failure, and we live in a region of successful men, successful businesses.
Mm-hmm.
We live in the same place where Microsoft started, Amazon started. I'm creating context especially for those who are watching who really don't know Seattle well enough, or who really don't know the Pacific Northwest. This is where Boeing started, you know, the oldest company that flies airplanes, you know, that builds now all the popular jets, some of whom are still failing. You know, recently there was a door that...
Good point. Good point.
Yeah, so no matter how far you go, you still fail, you know. Starbucks, you mentioned. You know, I just wanted to reflect a little bit about, you know, the kind of pressure that people from Seattle have in terms of succeeding, because we come from this region of great successful companies and billionaires, you know. But before we go there, just for a moment, I want you to also stay with me and just speak about, you know, how you know that you're failing, you know, you know that you're struggling, even though you're making progress, you've refused to fail. But out there are friends, there are community members, there are clients that totally see you as a rock star, you know.
Yeah, sure.
And they're cheering you on. They don't even want to know whether you're failing or not. I want you to speak about that. Speak about how such people actually are the fuel that make people succeed, you know, because a lot of what we see is actually a journey. It's not a success story yet, you know, but we live in a region literally where we've seen, for example, Jeff Bezos. I hear stories that he reached out to some people that is way richer than some of these people. He reached out to them and they said, oh, you're just selling books? Oh, that's going to fail, you know. We can't help you. So speak to how this cheerleading and how valuable, how important it is. Whether you are producing an event, you need people who are going to attend your event, whether it's just 5 people or not. Whether you're building a brand, you need, even if it's family members, you need people who are going to consume your product, even if it tastes terrible. They'll tell you, this is the best, you know, it's the best, it's the best smoothie I've ever drunk. I tell that to my daughters. Anyway, speak about your cheerleaders and just the value of having such people in your corner.
Well, you said it better than me. Those people that believe in you no matter what, cherish them and thank them, because there's not many of them. I'm fortunate to have people in my life that do believe in me. I also know people that they'll say they believe in you, but you kind of can tell, like, they're looking at you like, is he going to fail? Is it going to work? Like, I love my mom, but sometimes my mom will say, well, Kyle, like, even if Earthy doesn't do well, then, like, at least you have these skills to do the next thing. And I'm like, Mom, you don't understand. Like, this is it. I'm all in. If this fails, that is the worst thing that could happen, and that's not an option, you know? Right. So, so I think that's 2 things you mentioned. One is the, like, growing up in this very high pressure environment, which I'll tie into that in a second. But people that believe in you. So really quick, a story. So we wanted to launch our business, and we had an idea. We had a pitch deck. We were pitching our idea. They call it slinging decks. Sending your pitch deck on LinkedIn or on email to some angel investor and saying, hey, give us money. We need your permission. We need your money to go build this business that we're passionate about. And we didn't raise any money that way. We had no product, no customers, no product market fit. Investors would ask us. We probably had 50 or 100 meetings. Nobody invested. Investors would ask us, does it work? And do people want it? Like, those are the questions that, you know, if we can't say yes to both of those, then why are we even starting this? So we said, okay, we need to launch this ourselves. We decided we're going to buy a van and we're going to cycle and run from Canada to Mexico 1,800 miles over the course of a month and prove the product works and start building our community. Those are the two main goals. And along the way, people came out of the woodwork to support us. People put us up in their house, let us shower, let us clean our clothes, cooked us meals. And what we realized is that we never would have been able to do that trip without every single person that supported us. Like, it makes a huge difference when you're living three people in a van, squeezed in there like sardines, and to be able to come out, spend some time in someone's home, connect with other human beings, it meant the world to us. And so that was one of the biggest learnings that we had, was we need every single person who believes in us to be part of this whole journey. And so we launched in September, and to your point, the first orders we got, it's all our friends and family. We did no paid marketing. We've done a little bit of paid marketing since, but most of our early sales were organic, and then it dropped off, right? So a bunch of people bought the product in the first week and the first day. We thought this business is going to grow so fast. And then it was like crickets, quiet,
Right.
And so there was that period, that self-doubt. We were like, oh, what did we get ourselves into? Like, if my mom's not going to order 10 units a month, like, how are we going to sell these 500 units?
Right.
And so, yeah, I think just like really valuing the power of every single person's support. And we were talking before we started rolling about, like, people, they resonate with the product, but they resonate more with you and your story,
Right.
and your mission, and they want to see you succeed. So, do you want me to? I have a thought also on like the high pressure stuff.
Yeah. I want you to speak to that, man. You took me on a journey as you're speaking of you guys driving and cycling for weeks and months.
Yeah, 32 days.
Yeah, 32 days. Can you share with us a story of a moment during that whole journey where you felt like, this is the end. I'm giving up.
Yeah.
And suddenly somebody came from nowhere and, as you're saying, housed you guys, fed you guys, and made you feel like, okay, now I have more energy to keep going. Do you have a real example or a real story you want to share with us?
We were not gonna give up. So we were gonna make it no matter what. But
why
two
is it
stories.
that you guys were determined
Yeah.
that you're not going to give up?
Nobody's gonna hold us. What we realized is we were going to make it by human legs and mushrooms. Those are the two things that are going to power us. So we committed to not driving any of the miles. We were going to either cycle or run. And we got to a place in Southern Oregon. There was forest fires. It was 95 degrees, and there was no road to cycle or run on. So we were literally on the side of I-5 going up towards Grants Pass, Oregon. And at that point, it was the first failure of the trip. It was a moment where we had to say, okay, we told the people that follow us on social media, our friends, family, we're going to do this on human legs and mushrooms.
So hold on for a second.
Yeah.
Were you guys eating mushroom?
Our product has mushrooms in it. So
this mushroom that makes you hallucinate?
No, nothing like that.
I think that would have been so nice.
Well, we did have some of those on the trip too. But our product has two mushrooms, lion's mane and cordyceps, which are powerful for brain and body function.
Okay.
Cordyceps boosts ATP production, which allows more oxygen in your blood, which allows more energy to your muscles, so you have better endurance. But yeah, it was kind of a jokingly thing, like, hey, we're going on mushrooms and leg power, and we had to bite the bullet and say, we're going to get in the car, we're going to drive to the coast because it's not safe. And it's just, there's no reason to risk our safety over running on the side of the road or whatever. So that moment for sure was like the biggest low point of the trip, where we said, okay, we're going to drive 100 miles out to the coast. Yes, it's not exactly what we planned, but we're going to be honest about it. So we posted, hey, this is what we did. No one cared. Everyone's like still stoked that we're doing this trip. And then coming south, we didn't have a place to stay in San Francisco, and the night before we were coming into San Francisco, I reached out to a friend who's actually I met surfing in Mexico, who's a mentor of mine, and has been super helpful introducing us to different people, helped us find an intern. Just this guy, to your point, he's a higher net worth individual. He hasn't invested in us, but he's given us so much support, introducing us to people, giving us advice. And so we stayed with him on one night's notice. I'll say shout out to Hugh for just opening the doors of his house to 3 random one person that he knew, but my business partner and our videographer, he didn't know. He just said, "Come on in, guys." We spent 4 days there in San Francisco, just going around the city. We hosted a cold plunge event there, and it just really like brings joy to think about like how powerful just one person was in that trip, and then that happened again and again and again. People helped us out, so.
Yeah, man, I love such stories. I also just want to speak about, now I know we are going to speak about the pressure of starting something in Seattle, and whoever you meet, they'll ask you, are you based in Seattle? You know, they'll, in the back of their mind, they expect you to be the next Jeff Bezos, you know.
Sure.
So I know that we want to get into that conversation, but I wanted you to just imagine that it was a bunch of black people or African people cycling or doing this trip. I think they could not even make it to San Francisco because first they would have trouble with the authorities. They would have, reflect on that for a moment. Being black and trying to do what you guys did, I think it would be dangerous, right?
It's dangerous either way. And the reality is there are people out there that when they see I don't know what it's like to be black, but I do know that on the side of the road, when you're a cyclist, some cars are not going to be respectful to you. They're going to drive really fast next to you, honk, scare the heck out of you.
Yeah.
I can't speak on what might happen, but I do understand the challenge of getting into outdoor sports. I think especially as a non-white person. My girlfriend's Mexican, and she's part of a group here called Climbers of Color. And there's just this stigma, whether it's cultural or what it is, that prevents people of color from getting into these outdoor activities. They're also expensive. You have to buy a bike. You have to buy the gear. There's a lot of knowledge involved. So there's definitely like a movement towards that. Brooks Running here in Seattle is a big company. They're starting they're basically starting a nonprofit organization to help people of color get into the sport of running, because running, cycling, skiing, climbing, these are all very like white sports, but all humans should be doing them, you know?
Yeah. So I love running. I grew up in Kenya. I was an amateur boxer for a while, so I was running every day, you know? These days I don't run as much because of the fear of you know, there was a black young man that was shot while running.
Wow.
You know, Aubrey, I can't remember his first name, but you know, before that I was always fearful. I knew that coming to America, one of my mother's biggest fears was like, you're going there, everybody has guns, you know, even if you piss your wife off, she'll shoot you. So I was like, when that thing happened to that young man running, I kind of lost the love for running. And even these days when I go running, I love running early in the morning before there's too much smoke and car smells. So I still have to go with my headlight. Not recently, 2 years ago, a neighbor was asking me, why do you go running with all these reflectors even during the day? And I was telling her, man, because I'm just afraid that, you know, someone might not see me. Like something might happen. And I didn't know that my wife, who is white, was also actually fearful of even me going running. So sometime when I go running, she actually wants me to just text her, just tell me, hey, I'm going running, you know? And so that's part of why I was saying I can't imagine a group of young men trying to drive across run or bike across the US because they might be successful. They might face the regular dangers of safety and all of that, but they might also face some other challenges, you know? Anyway.
No, I appreciate you bringing that up. We don't think about that stuff. As men, as white men, we don't think about, you know, what the experience of a human might be if we weren't that, you know? So, I appreciate you saying that, because like I don't think about that really at all. I go for a run and I don't even consider. I live also outside the city, so I'm in the suburbs. I did live in the Central District here in Seattle, and you know, your cars are getting broken into on your street. You hear, you know, gunshot now and again, but man, I think there's also a lot of we create the fear ourselves, like whether
That's
it's
true.
legitimate or not. Like the media especially, right? You go to a concert, now all of a sudden we're all thinking like, oh, is there going to be something unsafe here at this concert? You know?
I see that. Yeah, I
Um,
see that all the time, and I do it to myself. Sometime after I go running is when I say, "Oh, I've just been telling myself, I've just been procrastinating."
Yeah.
Now let's talk about this pressure of even me when I started Madaraka Festival. The first Madaraka Festival was at the Museum of Pop Culture.
Oh, wow.
And Mopop, you know, as it's popularly known, at the time it was called Experience Music.
Yeah.
Experience Music
Project.
Museum.
EMP.
EMP.
Yeah.
Experience Music Project.
Yeah. Paul Allen started that.
So that alone, he gave us the first, funding.
Wow.
The first 14,000 that went into Madaraka Festival came directly from Paul Allen.
Small world.
So then, when I think of how do I grow this, because I also grew up in the shadows of an entrepreneur. My mother was an incredible entrepreneur, and I feel like if she was born in this region or somehow ended up in this region, she could have been a Bill Gates or something like that. But I also realized that, everyone has their story. But I do know that being based in Seattle, there's so much expectation when you are a startup founder, and I wanted you to speak to that. Have you experienced any of that with the work that you're doing with Earthy? And then I want us to go now deeper into what Earthy really is and more.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed this conversation so far. Thank you. So sorry, jog my memory. What was the question?
Talk about the pressure, of being native Seattleite, knowing that this is the region where all these incredible, successful people have come from, and feeling like you must succeed too.
Yeah, there's a song, you guys know Eminem?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a song called Yellow Brick Road, and when I was in 6th grade, I heard this lyric in this song. I was a big Eminem fan. I played basketball, so I wanted to be black. I thought being black was the coolest thing ever. All my teammates were black. I was the only white person on the team for many years, and growing up in Mercer Island, having exposure to sports, it helped. Both my parents and my upbringing helped me not have stigma towards other types of people. Just really grateful for that. But there's a quote in that song that says, every generation needs to do a little better than the one before. Right. And that at 12 years old, that resonated with me. I was like, man, my dad worked really hard to do what he did. His dad worked in a factory, worked really hard to put him to college. And now it's my turn. There's a lot of pressure on you, even as a 12-year-old, to go out into the world as a human being and find whatever that success might look like, financial or otherwise. And so I felt that, but I knew that the corporate path wasn't for me, so that I was going to have to find success or find achievement my own way, my own path. I remember I did a presentation my senior year in high school about, I just don't want to sit in a cubicle my whole life. I want to find something that I can, be my best self and make money, yes, but feel good about what I'm doing. And it's not easy to step off that path. I have a friend who, I used to work with a nonprofit called the Scooty Fund, and just because of life busyness, I had to step away. I was on the board, but it's a mental health organization started because one of my friends committed suicide in 3 weeks before he was going to graduate college. And I've had 3 other friends kill themselves in the last couple years. I don't need to go into details, but one of them specifically, on the outside, everyone, you have no idea what people are going through. Right. And so coming from this affluent community where your life is set, all you have to do is just keep your mind right, not get too depressed, keep your health. I know people that if they just did the bare minimum, they're going to be safe. They're going to have a shelter over their head. They're going to have food on the table. They never have to worry about the basic necessities, which is unbelievable blessing. But at the same time, I guess it's hard to describe because just coming from that community and seeing the pressure on the inside, like someone who's not from an affluent community would hear that and be like, dude, what are you complaining about? You know,
Right.
You've got it all. But that's
Right.
almost the point. It's like, yes, you have it all, and you are expected to do even better than the generation before. We're now in an economic era where the opportunity isn't the same as it was 20 years ago or 30 years ago. Like if you're in the 90s in the United States, like every company is growing rapidly. Now we're in this more challenging economic time, but people still have the expectation for growth and growth and growth. So one of my friend's dads actually invested in Amazon like early on. Bezos pitched my friend's dad Amazon in his kitchen. He was one of the first investors. This guy's a billionaire, and yeah, his son died by suicide. You know, so it's like the level of like success that his father had like was a lot for him. You know,
and it was not important for him, but maybe his father wanted him to be like him.
Yeah, and I don't know.
You don't know.
But,
Yeah,
I do know that like generally like the people that I've seen really struggle, like it's nothing against their parents. It's really the broader community of just like if you don't the pressure. Yeah. So I don't know if I did the best job explaining it.
Well,
but,
you did. And also I want to stick there because I also lost a friend here. I lost a Kenyan friend who was an incredible videographer. He was in the US military. He had a wife and a number of kids. We were same peers, you know. He filmed Madaraka Festival a number of times, actually. May his soul rest in peace.
Yeah.
His name was Philip, you know.
Philip.
And so when he never drank, he never smoked.
Wow.
he was just one of those clean, great people, you know. And then one day he disappeared. And so his wife and ex-wife were now looking for him. I was one of the first people that they reached out to because he used to speak very highly of me, you know. And they were like, have you heard from Philip, you know? So it took weeks before he was found in an bed and breakfast in Vancouver.
Wow.
He was living there. Anyway, so speaking about mental health is really important for event producers, for artists, especially because most of people who watch the Madaraka Festival, podcast here on YouTube and across social media are artists, entrepreneurs, event producers, people like you who are entrepreneurs. You know, we don't prioritize our mental health. You know, and that impacts our children.
100%.
We might think that we are fine, we are working out, we are meditating, we are doing yoga, we are making a lot of money, we are becoming billionaires, but it's impacting our children, you know. And one of the things I'm learning is if you don't make money and you're spending more time with your children, it's actually good for your own mental health, and it's good for their mental health too, you know. And I just feel like there's more that we can do as entrepreneurs, you know. But now that we've said a little bit of this, I want you to actually give us a little bit of the nuts and bolts of why you guys started Earthy. And there's so many companies like Earthy. Like in Seattle here, you find some of the most forward-thinking startups, you know, whether it's in the supplements, industry, whether it's in the fitness industry, whether it's in tech, you know, whether it's in sports, you know, or whether it's, just ideas. We are living, this is like, in fact, I heard that Seattle is one of the regions that has the highest number of suicide rates in the world, but also it has the highest number of billionaires and successful people in the world. I don't know.
Coincidence?
I don't know.
I don't know either.
I don't know, but the weather could be too, you know.
Yeah.
But it's also one of the places that legalized marijuana the earliest in the world, you know. So I think I feel privileged to live here, you know. And so I want you to speak about Earthy in a more specific way. Why is it important to you to do this?
Yeah.
And who is your ideal customer?
Two great questions. So I mentioned earlier, transparency is at our core. We we live in this functional mushroom world. So there's a large growing industry, largely created by a company called Mudwater. Maybe you've heard of them, maybe not. Mudwater.
No.
They're one of the biggest mushroom coffee or mushroom drink alternatives to coffee out there. And they do a good job. They have high quality ingredients. They've actually created a new category of products. So Earthy can replace and does replace pre-workout, energy drinks, and coffee. People are looking for like a natural energy supplement because coffee gives you jitters, messes with your gut, bad breath. Energy drinks have a bunch of stuff that you probably don't want in your body. They leave you feeling like cracked out or just kind of it's not a long-lasting clean energy. So we needed something as entrepreneurs, but we're also athletes. I'm listening to the audiobook of Shoe Dog right now, and Phil Knight's book. He started Nike, and they say if you have a body, you are an athlete. You know, so we're all humans, we're all athletes, we're all movers. Unfortunately, in this world, we get very specialized, and so we are told, hey, focus on one little narrow activity, or I'm a this. You know, we identify with like a narrow window of what it means to be human, and we kind of constrict ourselves to living in that area. Like, for example, someone invited me to an ecstatic dance event recently, and I was like, I need that. I know I need that. I need to go move my body and just have no judgment and dance however I want. I don't know how to dance. That sounds like something my soul needs, but my ego and my reservations as a human prevent me. They're like, oh, that's scary. I'm not a dancer. I don't know how to dance. Like, so then I created this barrier in my mind that's preventing me from living a higher and a better life, you know? So I don't know what you asked, but
I appreciate your response.
Yeah.
So you're speaking about Earthy and why you guys started.
Keeping me on track.
Yeah, and also why it's important to you. You know.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Empowering people to take ownership of their health is our mission as a business. Me personally, I'm very, very passionate about critical thinking and freedom and autonomy. Those are things that I just put at the top of my values list. I think every individual should have the freedom to decide what they put in their body, who they associate with, should they be allowed to run their business. We had, in the last couple years, the government telling us you can't operate your business. If you're trying to support your kids, you're an entrepreneur, the government's telling you, no, you can't do that. So for me, that was a scary time because I personally wasn't, a business owner at that time, but I saw other businesses, a lot of my favorite restaurants in Seattle closing down. I just think it's important to think critically. And I think if you do, it might be painful. Like I would personally rather have the truth than be ignorant, and ignorance is not bliss in my eyes. So, empowering people to own their health is one element of that, but that expands to finances, relationships, like really being the driver of your own life. There's a concept that I've kind of created, I guess. It's called a health journey. Everyone's on their own health journey, and each human is so unique. Like, to your point, generations pass down traumas, right? And so if you had a parent that had a challenging childhood, you may have had a fine childhood, but deep down in your genetics, it's called epigenetics, there's trauma there that can actually lead to just negative experiences in your own life that you might not even be aware of why they're there. So that's been something that's opened my eyes recently, of just like, everyone's on their own health journey. What you need to improve your health is going to be different based on where you're at in your health journey. For me, it's mobility. I've dealt with joint pain, hips, knees. Just many years of playing sports has caused some damage to my body. And so now I'm aware of that, and I'm intentionally trying to unwind that. But for someone else, it might be gut health, or maybe their brain, like they had a concussion, they hit their head, and they need something, or they need a path forward to improve that element of their health. Earthy is going to give you the energy that you need to go work out and get your body moving and maybe get you off the couch or take your training to the next level. We have people who are software engineers drinking it for productivity. And then we have just 2 days ago, this guy named Angelo ran 126 miles in 34 hours with Earthy. So like, not trying to just pitch Earthy as the product, but you asked, like we see the impact that we're having on people is helping them have a natural energy source so that they can go do the things that they want to do and live the life they want to live. So
I should probably try to break the Guinness World Book of Records of podcasting by drinking Earthy.
that would be viral.
and podcast for a whole week or a whole month. I'm joking.
That's not a bad idea, actually. We jokingly we often say we're in the stunt business because, like, for example, the Canada to Mexico thing, like, we don't have money to pay for advertising. So how do we get attention? We have to be loud about what we're doing, and we are. I think we could do a better job just being bold, unapologetic. We stand for transparency, and we think the supplement industry is letting people down, and just like that's our North Star. Say transparency is where we're going. How we get there, I don't really know. But yeah, just having those like core values and keeping you steered in the right direction has been critical for us. So yeah.
I love that. If you're just joining us for today's episode of Madaraka Festival Podcast, my name is Simon Javan Okelo. I am the host, and I have an incredible guest here, Kyle Huber, who is the CEO and co-founder of Earthy. And we've talked about a lot of things. I'll be summarizing as we're getting close to the end here. But I want to kind of align our conversation with event production, with the struggle that artists who are, we pay artists, as Madaraka Festival, our biggest expense is artists, you know, followed by travel, air travel, and lodging, you know. Artists go through a hard time to build their craft, to become a brand. Music festivals like Madaraka Festival or even Coachella functioned for decades before it was even breaking even, you know. I imagine that your business is probably not doing well financially and you're also struggling, but you've chosen the hard path, you know. Why are you choosing this difficult path?
There's no other option. This is the only way. On the trip from Canada to Mexico, I remember I was riding south of Santa Barbara into LA, like kind of around Malibu area, and I saw this guy just taking in the ocean, older gentleman, probably in his 70s. And I just went up to him and said, "Hey, here's a sample of Earthy. This is what we're all about." And he looked at me and he said, he was just a very like grumpy old stickler of a guy. And he looked at me, he's like, "You're screwed. Your generation there's no way. Like, you know, I don't know what I would do. Like, I started businesses and I did this, but now this country is ruined." And I looked at him and I said, "Man, what other option do I have?" Like he said, "The government's going to come tax you and there's going to be regulations that destroy your business." I'm like, maybe, yeah. But what other option is there? You know, this is where we live. This is our earth. This is our country. Like if we don't stand and build something and we just think we can run away, like, oh, I'm just going to move to the beach in Mexico and live the rest of my days there. Like you can do that. You know, that's an option. It's pretty cheap down there. You know, you can find a job at a local restaurant and surf, and a lot of people choose that. But yeah, I think, I don't know, man.
There's no option. I like that. I like that because even for me with Madaraka Festival, there's no option.
Yeah. That's how you know you're on the right path.
Yeah, and I've refused to have any other options.
Yeah.
Basically, I took out all the other options.
Yeah, no plan B.
And say that this is it.
Yeah.
And also, I want you to speak about the value of events and just your process, because I see that your company is a crowd-funded organization. So I want you to speak of, because crowdfunding is an event, you know, but I've done multiple crowdfunding events, even Madaraka, the first one, second, until the fifth one, we were doing crowdfunding alongside the festival. I want you to speak about your campaign. I want to give you a chance to also promote that campaign so that people can actually contribute to it, but speak of it as an event, because you had to plan it. You have a goal of how much you want to raise. you have a target audience that you want to pay attention to this campaign, that event, and support. But you also have an objective, you know.
Sure.
So just speak around that for a moment.
Yeah, definitely. The crowdfund, we see it as a community building, an event that builds community, right? And we have people that are supporters of us all across the country, some even outside the United States, and they want to support us. And so the thesis was, or the idea was, like, let's create the opportunity for any person who believes in us for as little as $100 to come along this journey with us. And so someone invests $100, they are going to be with us the whole journey, no matter what. They're an advocate for us. They're an ambassador for us. Think about Madaraka Festival. You have people all over the world, probably right now, talking about Madaraka Festival, saying, you know, who knows what they're saying? Oh, I remember an experience from last time, or, oh, did you hear about this time? Like, that's the most powerful marketing. It's free, and it's word of mouth marketing is by far the best. Like, if
super powerful.
No one buys stuff based on, I mean, people do, but I personally will buy something because someone tells me that it works for them, rather than an advertisement that you don't know if that person's being honest. They're probably an actor. So as far as like so we launched this. It's not a donation. Like, this is literally, you own equity in our business, and it's part of our fundraising strategy. It's not the whole thing. So we're doing $124,000 through the crowdfund. We're at $31,000 right now. And my business partner, Brooks, shout out Brooks, is running a marathon a day until we finish the crowdfund.
How long does it take to run a marathon? Like, what's the distance you cover per day?
26.2 miles, and that is 4 hours, 5 hours of running per day. And he's done that for 61 straight days.
Wow. So this is his full-time job, or what? Because he has very few hours to do other things. And then you have to stretch and get your body ready to run a marathon.
Yep.
And then after, you have to recover because you're exhausted from it. Or is he running it by beats, or just straight marathons every day?
Yeah, a marathon every day. He breaks it up into different segments. So he'll run 10 miles, and then he'll recover during the day and run 15 more. Still absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
And the two things that he told me, I said, what are two things that are surprising about your experience running 60 marathons? He said, his abs are sore. I don't know. Running, you think your legs would get sore, but it's his abs. And then two is the power of Earthy for recovery. The cordyceps, the beetroot, the cardiovascular boosting ingredients, it gives you the short-term energy, but it actually helps you recover quickly as well, which is something that we don't really market or brand very often, and really we hadn't learned until Brooks started to push his body that hard, that consistently. So yeah, I mean,
I want this thing. I want to try it. I want this. I want to try it.
Yeah.
Anyway, 3 tips. You know,
Yes.
a lot of people who watch this event, this podcast, are event producers, DJs, artists. You know, if you are giving advice, just 3 tips around event production.
Yep.
What would you give advice to somebody who is about to produce an event?
First thing for me is consistency. So if for Earthy, we're building this grassroots movement around, the concept is basically movement, nutrition, connection with earth, and connection with other people. Those 4 pillars is what we're building our whole business on, basically. And so connecting with people and having events in person, that looks like collaborating with a local gym, bringing people together and doing a movement fitness class together, or going to a run shop. I was just out in Snoqualmie Pass and handing out samples, talking to people there. I think being consistent is the number one thing. Like, if you do one event,
right,
it's great. You can do one event. But if you create a thing where it's like every Monday at this time, we're riding around Mercer Island. We do it on Mercer Island often, bike rides. So
Right.
Monday night at 6 p.m., we meet at the island. We do a 13-mile loop. People can drink Earthy or just hang out, network, and hang in the parking lot for a few minutes. And it's just this sense of community can't be built without consistency. So for me, that's the number one thing, is like being consistent. The other thing is, what would make you show up? That's what I ask myself.
Right.
Like, you have your perspectives. I think my business, Earthy's the coolest thing ever. Why would anyone not show up? Everyone should be there. But then you go talk to someone, you're like, oh, they have a life to live. They're busy. What would make them actually want to be there? and I try and ask myself that a lot. We're doing group conference calls as well. So this is a big part of our community building is we have the in-person events, but we're a consumer products business online. And so we do have to create community online, if that's even possible. And so we do every month we're doing which you're invited, by the way, this Thursday. It's a conference call to just connect rad humans. We say rad humans, just people doing cool things that are passionate about what they do, and create a place to share resources, network. We'll have a speaker come and share their story. We had a cancer survivor and wild river swimmer named Dean Hall last time, and people leave that call excited, you know, looking, hey, like maybe there's a photographer and a fitness coach. Those two people can help each other, you know, but how do they meet each other? Like, how do you know? You could go on LinkedIn and message 100, you know, fitness people. Hey, I want to help you make a video. Or like you can, I have a friend, introduce you. It's like just a warmer introduction. And so it's a place for people to kind of share resources. Which, I love that. Yeah, so it's hard to get people to show up to a Zoom call. You know, we're sitting on Zoom calls all day. And so we're trying to ask that exact question of what makes people show up.
I love that.
And what else? I got one more opportunity here. Maximize the fruit of your labor. So how much effort goes into creating an event is like only the person who made the event can possibly understand.
It's so crazy.
It's the emails, the text messages, the planning, bringing all the gear, all of it. And so if you're going to do that, you have to make the most out of I'm not saying extract value from people, but you need to capitalize on the momentum and the opportunity that you have. So what we do is we're trying to collect people's emails and get more followers on social media. Those two things. If we have an event and a couple people start to follow us and now they're in our orbit, in our community, they're seeing our content, we're able to touch, you know, communicate and have touch points with them more often. That's the tangible, like, we can measure that. Like, hey, this event was successful because we got 30 more signups. Like, yes, people had fun. Qualitatively, you can say it was a good event, but from a business standpoint, like, we're trying to run a business. If we weren't getting more emails and building the community, we have also another thing. I'm all over the place. We have a movement club. So it's a group text on WhatsApp. Anybody can join it. The idea is post if you want to do some type of movement. Hey, I'm going to go for a run, or I'm going to go for a bike ride. Maybe it even helps solve the problem of like feeling nervous or scared or reticent about going out to do some of these activities.
Yeah,
if you have people with you. So kind of seeing where people's needs are and creating solutions that work for us as a business and help us like build this grassroots community.
I love that.
But also, connect people.
That WhatsApp group reminds me of a soccer text group that I'm in.
Yeah.
And it's a big soccer community on Mas Island and on the east side. And we have the schedule, but when the time comes, people just say in, you know, who is in, and then in.
Yeah.
And that, even if I know I can't go, like now my soccer boots are torn because I've been playing a lot. I know I can't play, but it reminds me that this is my community. This is something I need to be a part of, you know, and also how I feel afterwards, you know. So I want to join that WhatsApp group for sure.
Sweet.
Because it's just a reminder, you know. But you know, speaking of extracting the most value of every event, I want you to look at that camera, and I just want you to say the following.
Yep.
You know, I am Kyle Huber, and you're watching Madaraka Festival Podcast. Please subscribe on YouTube, and please follow at Madaraka Festival across all platforms.
Okay. I'm Kyle Huber. You're watching the Madaraka Podcast. Please subscribe on YouTube and follow us at Madaraka Festival.
Perfect. Well, thank you again for making the time. For our viewers, I've been having an incredible conversation here with Kyle Huber, the COO and co-founder of Earthy. And we've talked a lot about his story as a Seattle native. We've talked about how he founded his organization, his startup company, Earthy, the journey that he took across America to Mexico, and how Good Samaritan, helped him and his group out. And also we talked about mental health and the value of mental health to to artists, to event producers, to people who are doing things. So I just want to thank you for staying with us the entire time. Remember to subscribe to Madaraka Festival podcast, and also go to the description if you want to get the show notes and get more details about our conversation, and also follow Earthy, the work that Kyle is doing. You can get it down in the description below. And I also just want to give a shout out to a few people who are in the room here at the Seattle Drum School who have joined us for this conversation, as well as my producer, the incredible Jay Cods. Thank you so much. Peace.